Hi there. Tasmania is currently the only state in Australia without a passenger rail network. We're also the only state stuck to buses, our congestion is higher and higher, and intercity travel between our cities is barely functional. I conducted an online survey where I asked my community how they would improve Tasmania's transport network. I've collected a random pick of 25 answers to go through in this video. I will also cover some common myths and misconceptions I've seen from these responses. Hi, I'm Tasmanian. If you are interested in public transport and history around Tasmania and Australia, consider subscribing. The first question asked was very simple: if they had caught a bus in Tasmania recently, and if so, where? Out of the options, the highest was none, with 10 votes. Following this, there was 7 in Greater Hobart, 3 in Launceston, 2 in Devonport, 1 on the intercity network, and 1 at Cradle Mountain. Interestingly, there were no responses from the regional or Burnie networks. Following on to question 2, respondents were asked what should happen to the Northern Suburbs Transit Corridor in Hobart. The options given were for a return to conventional heavy rail service, a light rail service, a busway from Glenorchy to Newtown, trackless trams, a linear parkland, a return of heritage rail service, or something else. Unsurprisingly, the majority of votes went to conventional rail, 10 votes, and light rail, 9 votes. The Tasmanian Transport Museum, getting the whole corridor, got 1 vote, and 5 other options were canvassed. The first said that either a light rail or O-Bahn system could work, the third, any that benefit the whole state, the fourth, that they don't care about the south. The second answer, which I've saved for the last, is the most interesting. This person claims that the rail corridor does not run near major population or retail centres and will fail unless they replace Elizabeth Street or Newtown Road with a light rail. And this is a perspective I hear a lot from Hobartians, but in general it isn't true. The line runs through the dense Moona to Glenorchy corridor, running parallel to Newtown Road, and south of Moona runs through suburban Newtown, serving the population there. A line could not easily serve North Hobart, running from the north, because of the terrain. The line around the shore, while indirect, offers a chance for faster speeds and direct access to the Tasmanian Botanical Gardens. Overall, this question showed very strong support for rail on the corridor and not for other modes like a busway. The third question was fairly straightforward again, asking respondents if they had ever ridden a train in Tasmania. The options were yes before the network closed, yes on a heritage tour after the closure, yes at a heritage railway, no, and I'm not sure. Most people had either never ridden a train or only at a heritage railway, both getting 9 votes. 5 people had ridden a train on a heritage tour and 1 had ridden it before the closure of the network. This is important as it gives us an idea of the sort of people answering this survey. The fourth question, and the most interesting out of the multiple choice questions, was: would the proposed Macquarie Point Stadium benefit our transport network? This is a highly contentious topic considering its cost, location, and overall usefulness are all up for debate. Out of the 6 options, there were: yes, it will improve the bus network; yes, a light rail system might be built; no, it will take up space where a railway station could be; no, it will lead to increased congestion causing buses to get stuck in traffic; no, it will lead to a shortage of buses for regular routes; and other. To my surprise, the 2 yes stadium options only got a combined 3 votes, 1 for bus and 2 for light rail. 2 other options were submitted, bringing the total of anti-stadium votes to 19 out of 25. The majority of these votes were for no, it will increase congestion causing buses to get stuck in traffic. This shows a very strong opposition to the stadium and a general acknowledgement that the proposed development will not benefit the state of Tasmania. I personally agree with this outcome, as the congestion from the stadium, whatever the government might say, will always be immensely destructive to Hobart, and the sourcing of taxpayer money from the north of the state, who won't even use the stadium, will further contribute to how awful this project is. The other options also need to be discussed. 1 in opposition to the stadium and 1 unsure. The unsure respondent states that it really depends on how the transit problem is addressed. Shuttle buses won't work, but rail could. The other respondent states that it is likely that a busway between Glenorchy and Newtown is advanced because of this, but they can't see how it will benefit the northern suburbs or transit in general. Heading on to the remaining questions, all of these had individualised answers. Everyone wrote their own responses. For each question, I will pick several answers from a diverse range of opinions for this. The first of these questions is, how can we improve buses in Hobart? The first response I have chosen is, improved consumer trust and break reliance on personal car use. Too many cancelled, lost or delayed services. Needs a big PR program, improved services, reduced ticket pricing, etc, etc. This is a very sensible approach to an improvement without needing many expensive upgrades or major new infrastructure. Firstly, breaking reliance on personal car use is critical to fixing our bus network. Hobart has some of the worst roads in the country, with major choke points on the Brooker Avenue, the Southern Outlet and the Tasman Bridge. As a plethora of incidents have shown, when any of these are blocked or closed, there are often no viable alternatives, especially on the Southern Outlet. The cancellation rate on Metro's Hobart network in particular is shocking, and I have endless screenshots of very late buses in Hobart. A big PR program, especially more than the current deception and the Launceston billboards, would be immensely helpful to improving patronage. Advertising their turn-up-and-go frequencies, their new electric buses, live tracking and other new developments could be incredibly useful. Hobart's bus tickets can get fairly expensive, especially without a green card or other smart card, so that'd be crucial for this in the future. Now, several responses saying that light rail and a feeder bus network would be helpful, and the most interesting one. None really. People don't just like buses, unfortunately. Same can be said in places like Melbourne, where people happily take trams or trains but avoid buses like the plague. This respondent believes that no matter what, you can't get people to use buses. I believe this isn't really true, as plenty of bus routes in Tasmania get great patronage, like the 780 in Launceston and the Intercity network. The next question asked was, how can we improve ferry services in Hobart? This is predominantly based around the fledgling Derwent ferry service between Bellerive and Hobart, an expansion of this system. However, several people misunderstood this as the Mona ferry. There were several suggestions for new wharves here, so I'll just list them all here. Mona, Derwent Park, Howrah, Kingston Beach, Lindisfarne, Sandy Bay, Guilston Bay, Tranmere, Lauderdale, Margate, Charlotte Cove, Cygnet, Franklin, Huonville, and Dover. Not sure if Dover was on my ferry bucket list, but okay. The main suggestion I will look at besides these is, as with any public transport solution, it's the underlying infrastructure that will help promote various modes of traffic, including ferry traffic, in and around Hobart and the Greater Hobart area. This makes a lot of sense, as it's very important to set up major interchanges and amenities at public transport hubs like a ferry wharf. This system, which could allow for feeder buses, has sadly not been implemented with the existing Bellerive ferry terminal. However, I believe there is significant potential for this to be changed. Another interesting thing was the split between pro and anti-park and rides. Many suggestions were given for park and rides at new terminals. However, others believe that a park and ride will ruin the walkability and catchment potential for a ferry terminal. Both sides have valid points, and I believe that stops in smaller suburbs should use a park and ride. However, in larger places like Bellerive, Kingston Beach and Lindisfarne, walkability and feeder buses should be used. Heading to the next question, and one that's sure to get the attention of us northerners, is, what is the best way to improve public transport in the Greater Hobart region? Genuinely, the responses here blew my mind, and I'm shocked at how pro-transit most of the responses were. The first response I will use is this: reintroducing of trams or trolley buses, increase of parking fees and tolls, limiting access to the CBD to work vehicles, utes, etc., introduction of park and ride facilities. This is a really interesting take. Reintroducing trams on the main Kings Meadows, Mowbray, Utahs, and Prospect Vale corridors definitely isn't going to happen anytime soon, but corridors should absolutely be preserved for these in the future. Trolley buses probably won't work here anymore, but bus rapid transit definitely could serve for the West Tamar and airport corridors. The difficulty with limited access to the CBD is that most journeys don't have an alternative path. Launceston doesn't have a bypass yet, and all the highways converge on suburban streets in the city centre. Park and rides are luckily already being proposed and studied by the Department of State Growth for Mowbray and Prospect Vale, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these come to life. The next response to look at is here. Start re-establishing the Launceston tram network, connecting Kings Meadows to the CBD, with later goals to connect the CBD to Newnham and Prospect. Bus rapid transit along either Tamar Highway doesn't make much sense, since there's honestly not much traffic to justify it. This is fairly similar to the earlier one, but more ambitious. A line to Newnham probably wouldn't be justified unless some major urban renewal happens out there, but I'd be on board of it. And to saying there isn't much traffic on the Tamar highways, try the bus from Launceston to Lagana in peak hour. I'm sure that'll stop anyone thinking that. The final suggestion I'll review for Lonnie is this. Utilise a transit card for all trips and to reopen the line to the train station for intercity and potentially suburban trains. The first thing to look at is that part of this is already happening. Tasmania's new transit smart card system is looking likely to begin operation late this year. This will make Tasmania the first Aussie state to have a statewide transit card, putting us above every mainland state. The next thing, reopening the line to Inverest wouldn't need much maintenance but also wouldn't provide a huge benefit. Sadly, it would be incredibly difficult to get a train into the new station at Inverest, and even Inverest is a fair distance from the city centre, about a 20-minute walk. A Launceston suburban service sadly would not be very useful as the line skirts around the urban area and doesn't enter the suburbs. Intercity travel would be very useful for this, but considering the recent developments at Bridgewater, I feel it is unlikely that an intercity train will return in the near future. Heading to the next question, I asked, what is the best way to improve public transport on the northwest coast, broadly the Latrobe to Wynyard corridor? This area is in a unique situation where there is a large group of towns and cities of between 5,000 and 30,000 population relatively close to each other, spread out along the coast. This northwest coast corridor has a significant lack of good public transport, especially when it comes to getting between towns. Previously, the Route 85 hospital link ran from the Mersey Community Hospital in Latrobe through to UTAS Burnie and the Northwest Regional Hospital in Burnie. However, this route was removed in favour of a faster express bus, Route 708, which runs faster and more frequently. However, it does not connect with either hospital or UTAS, instead ending at the city centres of Burnie and Devonport. This presents travel issues for people heading to and from the towns of Somerset, Wynyard and Latrobe, who will often have to wait out long transfers now. So now, let's see what you have to say about this. Firstly, here's a submission. A frequent connector route connecting Wynyard to Latrobe via all the in-between towns and Northwest Regional Hospital and Don Road shops. This makes a lot of sense, effectively being the old 85 hospital link, but extended to the Latrobe Town Centre and Wynyard. In the 2019 community consultation on the new Northwest bus network, including the removal of the 85s, something important that was proposed by many Wynyard Somerset residents was a direct route to the Northwest Regional Hospital instead of a transfer in Burnie's city centre. This is a good first step for linking the coast, especially with the link to Don Road, previously only on the Devonport urban network. The next option is here, intercity trains connecting the region to the rest of the state and the Spirit of Tasmania terminal, and better bus frequency. This is also very reasonable, as there are already an operational and intact rail corridor between Burnie and Devonport, and abandoned rights-of-way to Wynyard and Latrobe. Crucially, a Wynyard railway station would likely be situated directly outside the entrance of Burnie Airport, which currently has no public transport access. No airports in Tasmania have a normal bus service, however Hobart has got the Skybus. Links to the other airports, especially Devonport and Launceston, are very important. The new Spirit of Tasmania ferry terminal will be constructed very close to the 175 and 176 bus routes in East Devonport. Of the 13 responses here, 6 directly mention adding rail, which I approve of. The final question is, what is the best way to improve public transport in regional Tasmania? This question details the complex problem of improving public transport to the split up and lower density regional communities of Tasmania. Tasmania already has a decent regional bus network, however, when you look deeper, a vast labyrinth of cracks start to show. Awful travel times, impossible transfers, unusable frequencies, and complex booking systems contribute to incredibly low usage on our regional networks. Now, we need to see how you want to address this situation. Firstly, this person suggests an increase in tolls and introduction of central public transport hubs and corridors which stop at schools, medical facilities and high streets. Public transport in that area will be difficult due to a low population, heavy spread of existing population and low high streets. The area would require to get centralised. I partially agree with this. Putting tolls on regional roads and highways would guarantee disaster. However, yes, an increase in centralisation in regional communities can fix a lot of problems. Many regional towns were subdivided or planned as major hubs, and many of these reservations remain. By building roads on these alignments subdivided hundreds of years ago, we can create a far more important regional community, and by integrating public transport here from day one, we can create eco-friendly walkable communities from our regional areas. The next suggestion comes with this. Our regional network isn't actually all that bad, but integrating private services primarily meant for tourists into our public regional network could be beneficial. This is a very important thing to do. Services to major tourist destinations like Cradle Mountain, other national parks, and heritage towns can greatly benefit our state and regional areas. This brings me to the end of this video on your choices for Tasmania's public transport. All information was gathered via an online survey. All respondents were anonymous, and I asked for permission at the end of the survey to use their responses in this video. If you want to hear more of my personal opinions on these topics, consider subscribing as I go into the depths of Tasmania's transport all the time. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time on Tasmanian.